Hi, I'm Ginger Val.
Hi, I'm El Chivo.
Hi, I'm the Chankster.
And we are
The
Lousekast. Tonight on the Lousekast, who do we have, Chanksta?
We have Jesse Vest from the legendary groups Days of the New, Tantric, and more recently, Blitzkrieg and the Crashers. Yes.
So come enjoy the Lousekast of Jesse Vest.
Who it is?
Jesse, hey.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
What's going on?
Oh, your mic quality is so much better than ours. He's like, hey, everybody. Welcome
Does
to
it sound good?
Yeah, it does. It sounds
It's been a
good.
while since I've done this, so
So okay, so pretty much how it goes is we all ask a few questions and then like 2 or 3 questions. And Ginger Val, myself, and Chivo, and we ask you questions and then feel free to answer it any way you want.
okay.
Like the question that, I'm sure you've been asked a million times, but the Travis question in terms of like you guys played together a really long time. Everybody knows he has kind of like a rocky history and you guys were together since high school. Like, do you still talk now, or is that one of those things that you don't talk anymore? And
Well, he and I, as far as speaking goes, excuse me, as far as speaking goes, I haven't actually talked to him on the phone in probably 4 or 6 months, something like that. We text back and forth about absolutely nothing consequential. I mean, we just it's all bullshit. Every time we text, it's just like we'll talk about, hey, I'm watching Conan the Barbarian. What's up? Like it's that kind of thing where we don't really talk about anything meaningful, because that just leads to arguments.
right.
But he's living out in Utah right now, and knock on wood, he's doing really well. I'm proud of him. He seems to be making a real effort to get himself healthy and trying to support him as much as I can.
Okay. And
Now, the flip side of that question is, I know why you asked the question, because there have been very long periods of time where we've not talked at all. There have been years that have gone by because Travis is like my little brother. Like, I've known him so long that I don't remember meeting him. Like, we were very, very small kids when we met. That's not true. I do remember meeting him, but it's like a faint memory, so he always been like a little brother to me. And if any of you have little brothers, you know how much they can piss you off sometimes.
yeah.
So there have been plenty of times where we've just not talked and not got along, and some of that is just music business bullshit. That things sort of chips fell where they did, and some of it just, he can be a real asshole sometimes, and so can I. So.
So was it like that when you guys first, like, how did you guys, was somebody like, let's start a band, we're hanging out, let's just get together and start a band? Or was it like, was there a pioneer here, like in the original band?
Well, we got, I'll take the person who started playing first was Matt, the drummer. Matt's dad was a drummer in a local band around here. Matt's dad's no longer with us, but he was a really good drummer back in the day. And Matt learned from a very early age. He had a full kid's house with a rehearsal room and everything. So his dad taught him when he was very, very young. Travis and I, he got a guitar and I got a bass on the same day. We got the same Christmas morning. We got our guitar and bass at the same time, and we just taught each other to play. I mean, we loved Metallica, and this was so long ago. Like, we were learning like Guns N' Roses songs. It was like all hair metal. This was like pre-grunge, So we were learning all, trying to learn all Poison and this kind of stuff. And of course, the early 90s came along and we changed our tune, literally. But I don't know that I don't know that we ever had a moment where it was like, let's start a band. But we just loved music. And like I said, we got our instruments on the same day and we started playing and teaching each other stuff, and we kind of went from there.
I read that your family was musical, right? So did you have a lot of support like from them when you were just starting out?
Well, I grew up with my mother. Okay, so and I would see my dad sometimes. They split when I was very young. My dad and on my father's side, they were musicians, like actually played music. My mom's side of the family, nobody really was musicians, but they loved music. Like my mom, I listening to like the Eagles and CCR, and my mom was like a rocker. She loved that old school Bob Seger, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess between the two of them, I got a love of music from my mom. And I'd like to think I got some sort of talent for actually playing the music from my dad's side, because like I have a fiddle here at the house that's about, I guess now it'd be about 125 years old. It belonged to my grandfather, and he, way back in the day, he was a fiddle player in bluegrass bands over in
Mm-hmm.
and so it does have a little bit of a long history on my dad's side. Yeah.
And somebody played the banjo, right?
Well, poorly. Yeah, that was me. My dad played acoustic guitar, and he wanted me to play the banjo really badly.
Okay.
And he got me a banjo, and I don't remember much about playing banjo. I learned a little bit. And then I was over at my cousin David's house one time, and he played Metallica's Kill 'Em All, and Anesthesia Pulling Teeth came
The
on,
banjo?
and I was like, okay, I guess I'm a bass player now. So, not that I don't play anything like that, but when I heard Cliff Burton, that's what turned me on to it. And I be a totally different type of player. I'm more of a meat and potato player. I'm not very showy, but that's what got me into it for sure. I still have a banjo, but I haven't touched the damn thing in decades. It just sits in the basement.
Collecting dust.
Yep.
Waiting to be strummed.
Right, Chivo, that goes to you since from bassist to bassist.
Bass Brothers, So I guess one of my questions I'd like to ask you is, in your time, because you've gone through your ups and downs in your career, what moments have stuck out with you when it comes to like fan meetings? Do they meet you? What fan has ever has one fan ever moved you to a point where you just never expected to ever see, or just kind of moved you in a way you've never felt before, from a fan, it just, you've had to have a lot of interaction with your fans, so
yeah,
probably
that's for sure. I mean, this is it's an unexpected question. I got to be honest.
We're full of those.
A lot.
we're full of something.
It basically it's making me maybe feel a little guilty, because I know there have been a lot of really meaningful moments, but I'm just having trouble conjuring one in my head right now. I would think that there have been moments, I have to say, in almost every project I've been involved with, from Days to Tantric to even that, I'm in sort of a regional act called the Crafters. And I've been doing that for a dozen years now, and we have a very remarkable following, considering that basically we just mess around and have fun. So, but you know, I had conversations with fans who've driven, you know, like 20 hours or something to see a show. I remember when we did the Days of the New reunion tour, I think there was a guy who flew, I want to say flew from Sweden to St. Louis just to see us play. And it's like, man, I don't think I'd fly that far to see anybody. I can't think of an art that I would go through that much trouble to go see. It seemed like a ridiculous proposition, but I remember the guy looking me in the eyes, and he was very earnest, and he, you know, put his money where his mouth was, and he really wanted to see the show, and that was kind of touching, you know. You've been doing this, I guess, for as long as I have. You have a lot of interactions. Well, if you're lucky, which I consider myself to have been very lucky in all this, you'll have a lot of interactions like that with people who, one way or other, are moved by the music or the art that you create, you know, and that's a pretty great feeling.
It's cool.
Really
Actually,
cool.
it's kind of a segue into me, because I actually remember that reunion tour because I played one of those shows with my other band opening for you guys, and I actually remember meeting you that day. And the one thing I actually do remember was you gave me a CD of the Louisville Crashers. I remember that, and I remember that distinctly. And actually, when I heard it, was all original music. So that leads me to my question is, so that band particularly, did it start out as an original project and then turn into a cover band, or what was the change, or what was the whole process with the Crashers?
Yeah, it was the reverse. It started out as, to be honest, so the Crashers, I should just say this right off the bat, and I can tell you that my bandmates in Blitzkrieg, you know, Todd, Matt, Donald, none of them are going to be offended by this statement because they know it's true. The Crashers are the best as far as ability goes. They're the best group of musicians I've ever played with. I mean, I literally am not good enough to be in this band. They're amazing. And we were all close friends. Well, this is after I left Tantric. Sort of, I don't know, 15 years ago, something like that. And we started just kind of messing around and getting together and playing a little bit here and there just for fun. And we looked around and said, you know what, this is actually really good, and we could probably make some money doing this if we tried. And we were right. So, you know, we just played, you know, weddings and outdoor festivals, stuff like that. It was all cover material, and it was all, you know, we've got a horn section, so we could pull out the old Chicago and the, you know, we could do a lot of really cool stuff. And unexpectedly, we kind of built a following. So, you know, 2000, I think it was 2013 rolled around, and we were just looking for, just like, you know, maybe make an album. You know, we just thought it might be something that would be good to do for the fans that we had made, or the fans that we had, you know, gotten over the years. And we moved a lot more of those CDs than I thought we would. I'll be honest. I didn't think we'd move very many of them, but we sold quite a few. But the whole thing, we're, to this day, we're a cover band, and we'll cover anything. Bruno Mars, Van Halen, anything that's fun and makes people dance, we'll play it, and we have a great time doing it. But we put out that CD, and we'd love to do another one. It's just tough to find the time, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You guys tour as well, or do you just stay local? Or
we tour. Sorry.
No worries. Take your time, man.
Too much creamer in the coffee, I guess. So I think tour would not be the best word to use, but we do play regionally. You know, like we've been as far east as Philadelphia, and as far west as Colorado Springs. So, you know, if somebody's got the money, we got the time. That's kind of our thing.
Bills need to get paid.
Yeah. So we've been really fortunate though. Like we do a lot of, let's call them high, like corporate events. You know, like if there's a convention that comes in town, or if there's some sort of like a company Christmas party or anything like that. Of course, until COVID hit, we were very fortunate. We got to do a lot of that kind of stuff, and it pays fairly well. So it's to be able to make a decent living just playing other people's music and having a good time. I'm not complaining.
Cool. Well, that kind of brings me, that is a good segue into the next question is, do you ever plan on touring internationally again with any project? And if not, or if so, is there anything you miss about that? Do you ever think about it? Or was it kind of like, that was a chapter in my life, I'm kind of done with it?
I personally, not that I wouldn't, but it doesn't hold a whole lot of appeal for me. I live in Indiana. I like to be rooted. I'm sort of a homebody, and to be honest, the thought of touring in any capacity, like actually touring, where it's like, okay, let's we're going to get in the bus and we're going to be gone for the next 2 months. That is so little appeal for me. And I know that these days that's typically not how a lot of touring works. It's sort of shorter stints, or especially if you're touring from Nashville, you know, it's like weekend runs. You'll leave on a Thursday, come back on a Sunday, and that's it. But it doesn't really appeal to me very much.
When did you know you were done touring? Like when did it hit you? Like, do you remember when that moment you're like, that's it, I'm done. I can't do this anymore.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the nails in the coffin was the Days of the New Reunion tour. Because let me tell you, there's interpersonal turmoil and drama aside, being in a van.
We know.
Trust me, we know.
Yeah, being in a van with 6 or 7 other people.
Wow.
It's a lot different when you're 40 than it is when you're 20. It's not nearly as enjoyable. You know, I'd much rather be sleeping in my own bed every night and not smelling everybody's farts, you know? It's just not as...
Did you have air conditioning?
What?
But did you have air conditioning in your van? That's the big question.
I don't even remember. I'm sure that we did, but I don't remember.
We went, just to put some quotations to that, when we went across country to California, we had no AC in the middle of July. So it was brutal. And we went through the desert and everything. But anyway.
That's good times.
So
that's good times.
The farts that came out of that van.
Well,
they just coagulate.
Yeah, you gotta try to eat well. You can't be stopping for moons over my ham every 5 minutes. You know, it's got to be. You got to try to get some vegetables and fiber there. You know.
No.
Slim Jims and beef jerky. Yeah.
You think that would be great, but no, that to me, vegetables make it worse. It goes right through me, so it's like.
You might want to see a doctor about that.
Good idea.
Well, this is Jesse's first and last interview with us.
No, listen, it's on me. I'm the one that brought up farts, so it's on me.
All right, let's try to redirect.
It.
I guess I'll redirect the question to the days of the new. Like, what was there in the tour? What was you said it was tough because you're in your 40s and it's just tough from doing a dent. I guess the 20s.
It was a big difference, when you're 20. I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm looking at you. I'm going to take a shot and say you're all considerably younger than I am. That's what it looks like to me. So
we smile. We all smile.
Well, I'm sure you remember 20. You're basically bulletproof, and it's like you can eat anything. You can sleep anywhere. Nothing really bothers you. You can sleep upside down, and you wake up and you're not sore the next day. And now, if I don't have both of my special pillows, I'm sore the next day. So it's just a different experience. So
the one you hug and the one that hugs you. Like,
I'm not going into any further detail on that. I'm just saying. I like my. I don't even know what kind of mattress I have, but my wife spent a bunch of money on a mattress, and if I don't sleep on that mattress, I might as well be sleeping on a bed of nails. It's like I wake up in the morning and it's horrible. So, but to get back to what we were saying, it's definitely a big difference. And also, when you're 20, you don't mind. Well, you don't mind it as much, maybe, like the drama. You like when you're 20, it's like that's excitement. And it's like when you're 20 and there's a bar fight, you're like, fuck yeah, let's get in this bar fight. And when you're 40, it's like, maybe I shouldn't get in this bar fight, And days of the new,
break something.
We were fighters. We would get into fights with each other and with other people a lot when we were young.
Jeez.
I read that, it was speculated that you guys actually were beating each other up.
Well, there have been
physical fights.
Yeah, it's a book I tell with the Crashers. I always tell those guys that it's the first band I've ever been in where I've never punched anybody.
Oh man.
You're so sweet. Thank you, Jesse.
Yeah.
You say the sweetest things. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Did you ever break your bass over someone's head?
Oh.
Legally here, that's not a good idea. Jesse, don't answer that question.
Did you do that?
Me? No.
You wanted to.
I'm just making sure. I wanted to with plenty of people, but it's making sure, just watching your back, being a bass brother and all.
Oh.
Watch your back. It's just...
Yeah, most of the time I value my bass more than other people's faces. So
it's fair. That's fair.
Fair.
Yeah, I don't want to damage the bass. But I, I'm not talking like I'm some, brawler. Like this, it just, when you're young, you're more prone to that sort of behavior. You're more impetuous and impulsive, and you're like, when we did the reunion tour, I would find myself looking around, and it would be like I could see, somebody be talking a certain way, or Travis.
No names, but Travis.
Yeah. You would just be looking at situations, and you'd be like, oh, okay, this is the part where we would have been throwing fists 20 years ago. And maybe I shouldn't be here to this, That's the thing about it. Like, if you had talked to me before the reunion tour, I would have painted a picture of myself as somebody who had grown and was an adult and handled things responsibly. And I would have been right. But something about getting back on the road and that lifestyle, and with Travis especially, and even with Matt a little bit, who I love. Matt's like my brother, But some of that stuff would be like, it would bring out stuff in me that I didn't like about myself. I would have certain reactions to things and be like, I don't like this about myself. I need to get out of here so I'm not behaving this way. You know,
Mm-hmm. You're more reflective.
I know that's kind of a vague. That might be a vague way to put it, but it's without going into too much detail. It's just the overall sense that I got from the tour.
Mm-hmm. Chivo.
Yeah, no, I was just that brings up a good question on my end. What in your time doing these things, even if you've been going through, with a lot of the internal struggles and stuff, when you look back, do you think at any point in time, if you could go back and change anything just to see in what direction it would have gone, you think there would be another way you would have gone musically? Like if when Travis came and tried to recruit you for this band, and you said no, and you wanted to go a different direction, what would you have done? Like what kind of, would you play a different style? Would you have done something else? Or now that you've lived it and you saw it, and
I can't imagine. Let me just, I guess, put it this way. I can't imagine me making any different choices than I did and having my current life turn out any better than it is now. Like, not to sound braggadocious or anything, but I have a really, really great life. I love my life right now. I love my wife. I love my kids. I love, the entirety of my music career, all this that I've been able to do. It's all to this place in my life where, not that but if I died tomorrow, I would be like, okay, I had a really good run. So any regrets that I had, or any choices that I would have made differently, probably would have led me somewhere that's not here, and I like here. So I don't know that I would have changed anything.
It's fair.
The chemistry. The chemistry that I shared with Matt and Travis from a very young age wouldn't have been matched. Like if I had just been like, okay, I'm not going to play with these guys anymore, I'm going to play with those guys, I would have done something totally different. And, I probably would have gone to college after high school, and I'd be I don't know, whatever people who went to college do. Like I would have done something like that. But I didn't. So I just don't be as painful as some of the times in my life have been. I don't know that I could improve my current situation by changing anything.
Which kind of is a segue to my question, because you just mentioned Matt and Travis, and I actually wanted to talk about the core lineup, Matt and Todd and you, that made that Great Days of the New album, which is a legendary album. But then you guys went to do Tantric, which is also, and you guys did awesome with Tantric too. And I read that you guys are back again doing another album in a new band called Blitzkrieg. And I really want to know about that. I want to know, okay, what was the process of you guys getting back together now, different singer, because I know that core lineup, undeniable. You guys made great records for the first days of the new album to the first two Tantric albums. So what brought you guys back now? Was it maybe just because of the pandemic? You guys, you had time in your hands. Was it, you guys always wanted to do it, just had time? Like, I'm curious about the new band.
Well, it was absolutely, Blitzkrieg would not have happened without COVID. And I know COVID's been awful for a lot of people, and I don't want to celebrate it at all. I'm just pointing out the fact that, because the Crashers do, umpteen thousand dates a year. I mean, we were always, and if COVID hadn't hit, I would have just been doing crash stuff, and I wouldn't have time to do anything else. And the same thing with Todd. Todd, he basically is always on the road because he works You guys familiar with Dierks Bentley?
Not particularly.
There's a country singer named Dierks Bentley, and Todd tours with him. So Todd's always on the road, or was. So we just wouldn't have been able to do this if the pandemic hadn't shut everything down. So, and with that being said, so our singer Donald Carpenter, Todd and Donald have been talking, I don't know, for a year and a half, writing some music and doing some stuff together. And that was just going to be their project, and Matt and I not even being thought of because we didn't have time to do anything. But COVID hit, and I had more time on my hands, so I started going through a lot of my old memorabilia, and I was digitizing old VHS tapes from old performances of Days and Tantric and stuff like that. And I came upon this video. Actually, no, I think Todd came upon the video and shared it with me. And it was a video of Matt playing. It was like a side view of Matt playing. Is that me making that noise, or is you all hear that static noise?
Static.
Just Dan talking.
It could be me talking.
Okay. I think it's gone now. So, but anyway, there was a video of Matt playing, and I remember Todd shared it with me, and we were watching it, and I just watched it, and I thought, I'm a big fan of Matt Tall. Is just his drumming, he does some of the most tasteful stuff, in my opinion. And I remember watching that video and thinking, it would be a real damn shame if nobody ever got to see Matt Tall play again. And so that sort of got me fired up and thinking, well, maybe we should do something. And so Todd and I started talking, and then we started talking to Matt. And Todd had already been talking to Donald, and things just kind of fell into place. And we were like, okay, well, let's just get together and maybe we just get together and hang out and see if we can write a song or something. And so we got together and we wrote 4 songs in one day, and they were all good songs. It was just such a great experience that we were like, okay, well, we got to make an album now. So, and we did it. And it's a really good album. I'm excited for it to come out. It'll be out. Well, I don't have the exact release date yet. We have a tentative release date, but I'm not ready to say it publicly. But it's a good album, man. I mean, it's not punk. I know you.
Well,
I was listening to some of y'all's stuff on Spotify, just to sort of get acclimated. I don't have much of a bandwidth for punk. I don't have a lot of experience with it, I guess is what I would say. I'm not terribly familiar with it, but I was listening to it, and I was in the kitchen downstairs earlier, and my wife said, "Who's that?" I said, "It's the Lousekast." And she looked at me, and she's like, and I was like, "That's a really great name." And she was laughing. I love the name. I think it's the perfect name for a punk band.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to let Ginger take it in a sec, but I was going to say, speaking of Matt Tall, I couldn't tell you the amount of time, when I was trying to learn Touch, Peel, and Stand, that, song was, the death of me back in the day. So I could tell you right now, when you're saying this stuff about Matt Tall, I was like, yeah, that his drumming is what I would say he's definitely underrated for sure, because he's really, really, I just the stuff on that, and then some of the high stuff he does on Tantric, and the little off times and ghost notes he does, for me, I was like, wow, this guy, he's I hear it completely. I hear it in the play. I'm just like, wow.
There's nobody like him, and that Touch, Peel, and Stand. when we recorded that, like version that you hear that's on the album, we were in high school when we recorded it. Like, that I had to talk to my principal into letting me go to Nashville for 2 weeks, and still be able to graduate on time. And he let me do it, which was nice. But that just shows you how young we were. So from that early age, Matt was just, it's like a different species or something, and all his stuff in Days of the New anyway, all single pedal, like there was no double kick, and he had the back right foot, just that feel between the hat and the snare. There's nobody like him. I could talk about Matt Tall. Don't tell him I said that.
I'll think about it.
Well, I was actually going to ask.
I'll edit that out. So.
About, since you brought up the Touch, Peel, and Stand, like when you guys first made that song at such a young age, did you see it like change and evolve, like after you got it recorded and you played it a bunch of times? And what was it like the first time you saw the video out? Were you just like, oh my God, like, was it surreal?
Well, I'll tell you what, not many people know this, but Touch, Peel, and Stand, when we wrote it, it was about an 11-minute long song. And
wow.
the chorus that everybody knows, Finally Found a Reason, that was just one small snippet in the song. It was not really, like, we were doing stuff, like it was like an acoustic tool or something, like we had, our songs were like 10 or 12 minutes long, and it was all these different parts in there. And when we got the record deal, we started working with a producer. The producer's like, okay, we need to take this 12-minute song and it needs to be about a 3.5, 4-minute song. And so in that process, Touch, Peel, and Stand lost a lot of the things that I love about it. Like there was some really cool riffs in there and some like really dark vibe. But so, the difference between when we actually wrote it and when it got on the album is a huge difference. And then,
was there a reason why you guys cut it down? Were you told to cut it down? Like,
we cut it down.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say every song, but I think most of the songs on that first Days of the record originally were a lot longer. But in order to make them, I don't know what the word is, palatable, like basically, especially in those days, you wanted radio to play your songs, and radio's not going to play an 11 or 12 minutes long song. They're just not going to do it. So there was a lot of pressure to cut the songs down to a manageable length. And in retrospect, of course, it was the right call. We might have protested a little bit, but we didn't have much say in it. We were kids, and they had all the money and they had all the expertise, and they kind of told us what to do, and we did it. As far as making those edits and cutting everything down, and then when we got when the song came out, that's when we knew we had something. It went, as of, I don't know, somebody may have broke, but I know that it spent like 16 weeks at #1, which was the record then.
I remember making out to that song in the back of my ex-boyfriend's Volkswagen bus at a very young age, and that song was
glad we could
like,
help.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished. We were writing the song so that people could get lucky in VW vans.
Yeah.
Learn something new every day. about that song. Now you'll never think of that song the same way again.
Yeah, it was very. Looking back, I think I'm more affected by it than I was then, because again, the youth, and when you're, 19, 20 years old, you don't have any reference for this kind of stuff. You put an album out and your first single goes to number one and stays there, and part of you just thinks that that's normal or something. Like you don't have any you don't know how hard it is to do that because you've never done anything in your life. You worked at Pizza Hut for 6 months. What the fuck do you know? But looking back at it now, I realize what an impressive feat it is. It was a big deal, and we were incredibly lucky.
And did you guys know that, like, when you were practicing the song, were you like, oh, this is going to be the one. This is definitely the one we want to push. Like, this is the one. It's got the best hook in it. This is the one that's going to be big.
I don't think. Oh, I can only speak for myself. I don't think that I thought that. I was a big fan of. There's a song called "Where I Stand" that's on that record.
Yep.
That one, I always liked the hook better in that one, and I think that my view of it was jaded because "Touch, Feel, and Stand" became something so different than the original. I think it was difficult for me to see it as a single. But I was much more a fan of "Shelf in the Room" and "Where I Stand," and there's a song called "Now" on that album that I thought "Now" would be definitely a radio single, but no, I was wrong. It's happened before, it'll happen again.
Chivo.
So I guess I have a couple of questions, but so this one's probably a little quick for you, but because we were talking about before how you wouldn't change anything, and that's cool. I think that's really admirable that you that's like a really cool thing to be secure of all the things you've gone through, and that's cool. And then but if you had a choice, if you could talk to yourself 20 years ago, what 3 pieces of advice would you give yourself?
I could talk to my 20 years ago.
Yeah, like your 20-year-old version of yourself, like the
20-year-old version of Jesse. I would say eat better. Because let me tell you, when I was 20, I basically lived off Spam and Vienna sausages, and I was not taking care of myself, and now I'm paying for it. I mean, I'm healthy, but just trying to keep myself from. It's just like you don't think about things like that when you're young. Say eat better. Man, this is hard.
Glad we could stump you.
Listen, you guys are going to be my psychotherapy session here.
Yeah, we usually are.
The problem for me is that I tend to overanalyze things. Like when people, words are important to me, and when people ask me questions, I try to get very specific with words and think about, okay, what does this word actually mean?
Mm-hmm.
And
I get that.
So when I think about what would I tell my 20-year-old self, it's the whole Back to the Future. You don't want to alter the future too much, but you want to try to. Man, it's a difficult question. I mean, there are things. Yeah, I'm certain that there are things that maybe I won't share publicly on this podcast. That were bad ideas that I would tell my 20-year-old self to avoid. here's one. I think this is helpful. And this is something that I tell musicians all the time. Is I would have told myself to have a plan B. I've found it very helpful as I've gotten older in life to have my fingers in multiple pies. I don't, in a double entendre in a way. I mean,
I do.
I mean it like. What I mean is when you musician.
We lost her. We lost her.
Yeah, dude, we lost her.
You gonna make it?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I know how they think. That's why I'm laughing.
Well, I've found it helpful to diversify my time and to make sure that all of my income is not dependent on the music industry, because the music industry is a very cruel bitch. And sometimes she's not very nice, and that means you're broke, and being broke sucks. It's happened to me many times in my life, and now I've gotten to a point where, and like I said, I tell all musicians this: don't put 100% of your eggs in the music basket. Make sure that there's something else going on in your life. Just like this whole last year when I lost a considerable amount of money because of COVID, but because I had other things going on in my life, I've made it and I'm okay. You know, I'm not, my family's not out on the street. So that's something I would have told 20-year-old me, because, you know, it was very embarrassing. When Days of the New split up, this is pretty common knowledge. I got screwed over on Days of the New pretty badly, financially.
Mm-hmm.
As some of that has been rectified, and that was without giving away, hopefully I'm not giving away too much here. That was part of the impetus for me agreeing to do the reunion tour in 2014, as I was able to rectify some of that really bad business that got pulled on me when I was young.
That was only fair.
Yeah.
So, but when I came out of Days of the New, so summer 1998, I was touring with Metallica, right? Did 42 shows open for Metallica. It was top of the world. You fast forward 6 months, I was a fry cook at Hooters. So in between Days of the and Tantric, there was a portion of time there when we were, you know, still writing material for Tantric, putting that project together. I had no money, and I was doing anything I could, you know, and that was a big lesson that I had to learn. Was, you know, you especially if you're going to be a musician, you can't put all your eggs in that basket. It's just a bad idea.
We've heard that many times. Was it how was Lars? I can't stand him. Side note.
This is going to be a
really
segue
can't
into my
stand
next
Lars,
question.
Man. I don't even know him, but he seems like a douche. I'm sorry.
Let me tell you.
Especially after that.
So we spent like when we were growing up, me, Matt, I mean the whole band, Todd, Travis, everybody. We worshiped Metallica when we were growing up, and
and then you met Lars.
In the spring of '98, the booking agent came to us and said, "Listen, you got a choice. You can either go out as the opening act for Van Halen, or you can go out as the opening act for Metallica." And of course, we picked Metallica. Now, you're not going to believe this, but Lars was absolutely the coolest person in the band to us.
Wow.
I can't speak for his attitude toward anybody else. I don't know. But to us, he did more than any other member of that band to reach out and to make us feel welcome. And we spent quite a bit of time with Lars. After that, it was Jay, and Kirk was a distant third, and James, we didn't really talk to James because and we're told that normally James is much more maybe that's the word. You know, James usually is much nicer and approachable, but during that summer, again, this is just what I was told, he apparently was in and out of rehab and was like, you know, was having a real drinking problem. And I think so I was told he was trying to stay away from people because if you're trying to quit drinking, the last thing you want to do is hang out with Days of the New in 1998. That's
right.
the fucking last place you want to be if you're trying not to drink, because that's all we did was drink. And we weren't old enough to drink, but we did. That's all we did. Was drink.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my takeaway from that. Lars, you know, you hear things about people, but he was absolutely a stand-up guy to us, and was out of his way, would come to our dressing room and hang out with us, and just real nice guy to us.
That's an interesting perspective.
Well, it's a first-hand perspective, so it works out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Lars could be part of your answer for the next question. So, and this is a random one. If you can form a super group where you're playing bass with anybody, live or dead, from 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or even now, what would it be?
Okay, so I'm playing bass.
Yes, you're
but
bass.
I get to pick the band around.
Yes.
And I know this is going to sound like I'm blowing smoke here, but I'm picking Matt Tall on the drums.
Okay.
And that's probably part of that is comfort level, because Matt and I are like peas and carrots. We just, there's no thinking about it. We just know what each other's going to do because we've been playing it for our whole lives. Guitar and vocals, that's the hard stuff. Anybody alive or dead?
Anybody. It could be Mozart for all you know it is.
I mean, I'll tell you somebody I'm always intrigued by. Well, everybody, a lot of people are intrigued by is Jeff Buckley. I loved his vocal styling. Like his songwriting, some of his songs I absolutely love, and some of them are just like, oh, okay, that's a nice song. But the way that he forms his words and everything as a singer, I've always loved him. So that's my knee-jerk reaction, is to say Jeff Buckley.
Pretty good choice.
Player. Guitar player, I'm going Stevie Ray Vaughan. So, and the thing is that would be the weirdest band ever, because Matt and I are not blues players at all. So that would be awkward. He would probably fire us immediately.
Any keyboard players?
He would walk out. He just walk out. He just leave.
Yeah. Did you say keyboard?
Yeah, you got a keyboard player. You know how you can be there too.
You can make the band as big as you want.
Yeah, you can be a ska band for all you know.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Keyboard player. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank. I mean, I might pick somebody soulful, like maybe keyboard player is not the right term, but piano player. You know, like Billy Joel or even Michael McDonald's got a pretty good piano player.
Michael McDonald.
Oh.
Hey, we got Elton John there. We got Stevie Wonder in there.
Michael McDonald is one of those guys that everybody has an impersonation of him.
Half of it's not even words.
No.
Yeah.
My drummer,
Sweet Mike McDonald.
my drummer in the Crashers, is a guy named Max Maxwell, who is amazing. Like everybody in the Crashers, amazing. He got to play with Michael McDonald one time because Kentucky Derby, every year we have all these like amazing artists and celebrities come in, and we've gotten to play with a lot of people. We played. We were the backup band for like Kid Rock and Travis Tritt and Dennis DeYoung from Styx. We got to play with Dennis DeYoung, which I don't know how familiar you are with him, but he was fantastic. Man, we got to play "Come Sail Away" and like he's up there singing and directing the thing, and but Max got to play with Michael McDonald, and he just went on and on about how good that guy is. His voice is just so amazing live.
This reminds me, he's such a like Vegas performer. Like he just reminds me of someone I'd want to see in like Atlantic City or Vegas.
Yeah. Well, he's from a different era. They don't make guys like that anymore.
No, they don't. The Michael McDonald factory has closed for the century.
Well, they have Richard Cheese. That's like the Richard Cheese.
Oh man,
close enough. That's the generic Michael McDonald. It's the Wish version of Michael McDonald.
Oh yeah.
All right, I guess we want to do one final round of questions, guys.
It's up to it's really up to Jesse.
Yeah. I love you. Want to talk to us? Want to talk to us all night?
Let's not do that.
I mean,
Let's
do that.
I got more time. If you guys got questions, I got answers that are long and vague and droning.
Well, all right. So who wants to start off? You want to start off, Val?
Yeah.
Well, my last question is kind of like, well, I guess it's kind of two questions. I'm going to try to merge them into one, but what does the future hold for you? What do you really want to do in the future? It seems like you're probably going to play music forever because you're a really passionate musician. And also, are your kids musical? And if so, or if they decided to be, would you be supportive of them pursuing music like you did?
I'll take the second question first.
Go for it.
I'll tell you that my kids really are not musical. I mean, there's a couple that dilly dally around. All my kids like music, but as far as being musicians, I don't think any of them got bugged like I did. Now, if they were going to do it, I, of course, would be supportive of it, but with the caveat that I mentioned earlier, that you got to have a plan. It's a tough business, tough racket to make a living in. You got to have a plan B. You got to have a backup. So that's the answer to that question. As far as what the future holds for me, I really don't know. I'll tell you this. I have immensely enjoyed making this Blitzkrieg record. I knew I was going to have a good time just because it was me and the guys getting together again after so long. I didn't expect the album to be so good. Honestly, when we were going into it, I was like, let's just see what happens. And if nothing else, we'll have a good time. But it turned out to be a really good album. And so I could see me trying to carve out more time in my life moving forward. I'm going to be in the Crashers because the Crashers is, it's a blast, and to be honest, it's my biggest bill payer. We do really well, so I'm not going to let it go. It's just too great an opportunity. I got to hold on to it, but I could see myself carving more time out to spend with Matt and Todd and Donald and making more Blitzkrieg material, even if it's just an EP or a couple of singles here and there. I see me trying at least to hang on to that and to do more of that in the future.
Very cool.
Oh, all right, Changsta, let's see what you got.
I'm gonna kind of my last question, Jesse, because something I kind of wanted to talk about, because we've been talking a lot about Days of the New. I almost feel like with Tantric, do you still talk to any of the guys with Tantric, like the vocalist for Tantric, or is that another bridge? Well, I don't know if I could say bridge burned would be the right way to say it, but what's the deal? I don't really know much about what happened with Tantric.
Well, as far as what happened with Tantric, I can only speak from my own personal experience. After the touring for the second album finished, I stepped away. Tantric was still an intact entity when I. Now, as far as what happened between three of those guys, like Matt and Todd and Hugo, I'll have to leave that quote to them because I just don't feel qualified to answer it. Yeah. But I left really because my son at that point, my oldest son was 4 or 5, and basically I'd spent his whole life on the road. I missed a lot of stuff. I missed his first steps. I missed his first words. It's you go on the road. It's a difficult thing if you're a parent, and so I left the project to be able to spend more time at home with family. And that was my reason. And as far as Hugo, I don't have anything against Hugo. He and I don't really talk very much. In fact, I haven't actually seen him or spoken to him even on the phone. And I bet it's been 10, 12 years. I haven't spoken to him in a very long time. Now, we have messaged each other, back and forth online. As a matter of fact, I should say he was very generous when we announced the Blue project. He reached out to me personally and said, "Listen, if there's anything I can do to help you guys, promote this project, let me know." So it was very nice. He's still. Well, when I left Tantric, social media wasn't really a thing. But in the intervening years, he's developed a social media following, and he offered to share the Blitzkrieg single on the Tantric social media, which was, in my opinion, is not. He didn't have to do that, and so I don't have anything against him. He and we just don't talk really.
Okay.
All right, and all right, finally, last question. So we talked a lot about what your younger self would do, and we talked a lot about what you're doing now, and the things that because of COVID and how life has turned out, what you're doing now. What for any person or kid or whatever age is starting listening to your music and decides that they want to start playing music and they want to start and they want to try to make it their profession. They have a plan B. That's one thing you would tell them. What are the dangers of the music industry that you would tell them to stay away from?
Okay. I'm going to give you a lawyer answer.
Fair enough.
Because I am a lawyer, but again, I tend to take words kind of seriously. And this is you use a word like music business, like what to watch out for the music business. The thing that I've noticed is that the music business is not a static entity. It is always changing and shifting, especially as technology progresses. Everything is shifting, and it's incredibly difficult to keep your mind wrapped around the things you need to think about. And that I didn't really realize how much it had changed until we put this Blitzkrieg album together and we started talking to record company, started sort of having conversations with people, and I realized, oh, this is not even close to the same business I was in back in the day. This is a completely different thing, because now you're basically selling a product that everybody expects to get for free, and there's no way really to do that well. It's tough to make money, and so the record companies that are still around, it's difficult for them to make money, and they have to get very creative in new ways to screw musicians over. So that's my long way of saying that I don't know the first thing to tell somebody, because as soon as I tell them what to watch out for, there's going to be something else they have to watch out for. It's just it's a blob. It's this transforming thing that's ever shifting. You can't really get a grip on it. And so that's why, I mean, it looks like the Blitzkrieg record is completely self-released, because, just through the research that we've done and the people we talk to, and it just seems like all of the tools are there for you to self-release if you're good. If you're good enough, and if the music is good enough, you'll be able to okay with a self-release. The problem, I guess, it comes down to is if the music is so and you're relying on image and fluff, you're probably going to need somebody to help you promote that stuff, because if the music's not strong enough to stand alone, you're going to have to involve some other people on your team. And I have no useful information on any of that, man. It's a tough business. It's a tough cookie to crack.
Yeah, I totally respect that. It's just, I think the question came from a place where it's like, you've seen a lot of the pitfalls that people go through on the road, and like even on the business side, but even individually, like in your band, in the band dynamics, like politics, all that stuff. I mean, there's so much that you've probably seen that like you can't. Some of it you probably avoid talking about or don't even want to think about, because you're like kind of done with it,
Yeah. The when you talk about stuff like that, like the real nitty gritty about, how to compose yourself and behave yourself, and what to do, what not to do in the music business, as far as on a personal level with you and your bandmates or whatever. That's the same advice that you tell anybody. That's, don't do drugs. Or at least don't do the wrong drugs. There's some things that it doesn't really matter what field you're in, whether it's music or any of the arts, or even the world of business or finance or politics or whatever. Don't cheat on your wife. Don't hit people. Don't get hit by people. There's all kinds of things. That, and it's just basic. I want to say human decency. I mean, I know that there are some people who have real struggles, whether it's with their mental health or substance abuse problems, stuff like that. And it's not as easy as just saying, don't do drugs and don't hit people. It's a complicated issue, but the day-to-day advice for, what to do and what not to do, those are lessons that and most of the time I've learned it from watching the people make the mistake, thankfully. I've made plenty of mistakes in my life, but the most lessons I've learned from watching friends of mine do very ill-advised things while I wind up in places that I don't want to be. And so I hang on to those lessons,
That's fair.
All right.
Well,
awesome.
It's been a
thank you
blast.
for hanging out with us. Thank you for obliging to answer these questions. I know I speak for at least all three of us, I guess, that we really appreciate you being here and answering our questions honestly and being very candid with us. So that's very cool of you, and we really appreciate it.
Anything you want to plug before you go?
Any plugs?
I mean, I don't have, like I said before, I don't have an actual release date for the Blitzkrieg record, but you know, go like us on social media.
Yeah,
BLISSKRIEG, Blisskrieg. The album will be out. Go like the Crashers. The Crashers, it's literally the best band you've never heard. They're
I checked them out. I actually liked it. It was they were fun.
Yeah, there's just nothing like they're amazing musicians, and it's an honor to play with them. Like I said, I'm not good enough to play with them, so those are the only things I'll plug. Just go check out the Crashers, out Blitzkrieg, and
cool.
Yeah.
We'll make sure we put the links and stuff. Yeah. Oh man, it was our pleasure.
Yes, thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely.
No problem.
All right, you have a good night.
All right, guys. All right.
See you guys.
See ya.
Jesse Vest, guys.
Killer dude.
It's pretty
awesome.
dope. Pretty dope interview.
That was awesome. I feel like I just took a trip to Indiana.
I feel like I took a trip back to 1997.
Or 1997 in the back of my boyfriend's Volkswagen.
I learned a lot of information, and we learned also too that
too much.
Oh, I want to plug this in.
Lines were crossed tonight.
Also, and we learned too, Ginger Val, that Lars Ulrich is a great person. How do you feel about that?
He's actually a really nice guy.
I mean, Jesse seems like he knows what he's talking about. I've had the Lars stain in my soul.
Until you actually meet him, it's just going to be the same feeling. It's fine.
He's not that Napster guy.
We'll hang out and play Yahtzee together. Me and Lars, and talk about Napster.
Yeah.
Why it was good.
Lars, have you heard of Spotify?
Pretty sure he's the reason why it happened.
All right.
All right.
Out.
Lousekast.
Lousekast. Oh.